Hey everyone, this is Gabrielle again, and today we actually have a very special guest because we are actually going into the world of academics of how you actually prepare a millennial. One of the biggest questions that I get from young people all of the time when they're thinking about should I start a business, should I not start a business, is where should I go to learn about starting a business? So today we have Fred Tuffle, who is the Director of Entrepreneurship. Yes, that is an actual title at Bentley University. And so he is going to help give us some perspective about how you actually train up the next generation. So Fred, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, you're welcome.
So Fred, I am fascinated with your story. When we first started talking, you said, I am not an academic at all. I'm the wrong person to talk to, but I think you're actually the perfect person to talk to because I'm starting to see a trend in universities that they're moving away towards theory and moving much more towards the practical way of teaching. So maybe you can just jump in and talk about how you've seen entrepreneurship today look different than when you started. What, you're now on 7 businesses now?
That's correct.
So how has it changed?
Well, there are a lot of things that are different. The first thing that is that's very obvious to me is the cost to start a business. Because as an entrepreneur, most of your time is spent raising money. At least it has been in all my businesses. And today, there is a huge amount of money out there, and it's available to entrepreneurs. And the nice thing is that you just today don't need nearly as much money to start a business as you did just a few years ago. With technology being what it is, what used to cost 5 to 10 million can now be done for $50 to $500,000.
Why is that? Why is it so much cheaper now to start a business than it was 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago?
Because of the technology. My last business that I sold, and the changing business models. The last business I sold, which was just a couple of years ago, we were at $45 million in sales roughly, and we sold the business. We had no employees, none, zero. We had no infrastructure, none, zero. We had basically no office. I mean, our total assets were cash and intellectual property. Mm. And so, whereas just a few years ago, I would have had to have servers, and I would have, in-depth computational capabilities. I would have had R&D staffs. I would have had a tremendous sales force. I didn't need any of that. And we grew this enormous business and could sell it, and basically without all the costs associated with what was normal as a business. If I go back to when I was in school as an undergraduate engineer, and I went to the University of Detroit as an undergraduate, and we got taken out to the Ford River Rouge plant where barges came in and they had iron ore on them from the Ford mines, and they had trees from the rubber trees from the Ford rubber plantation, and sand from their quarries, etc. It would go into this Ford River Rouge plant. The other side out would come Mustangs. So vertical integration was considered the norm. And over the decades, that of course has changed dramatically. And today, you can, with technology, with my cell phone, I could start a business and I could need nothing other than a cell phone. That's all, just a cell phone. So, and in fact, in class, I teach about
today. Even write business plans? I mean, if business is changing so much, what role does a business plan actually play?
Nobody uses business plans anymore. Now, at Bentley, we force the students to do, in one of the courses, to do a business plan. And the only reason we do that is because it forces the student to think about all the aspects of a business and get their head set around that and then start to plan it out. But today, all you need to raise money is basically a really good executive summary and an elevator pitch first, a great executive summary, and a great slide deck. And if you've got that, and you've got a team together, and you've got a really good idea and you can get it, prove that you can make it happen, then the money's available. Now, I want to talk about, I said something earlier, that money was available today, and there's an enormous amount of money out there. However, starting back in 2000 with the implosion of the dot-com period, then again in 2008, one of the challenges to entrepreneurs, and this is true for millennials, it's true for any entrepreneur today, is that what needs to happen on your dime has gotten to be much greater. Way back, if you go back to like 99, 2000, that was a great times, by the way, if you were an entrepreneur at that time, because money was just flowing on an idea in the back of an envelope. But today, that's no longer the case. Ideas don't usually get funded. What has to happen, and this is one of the challenges to millennials, is that they have to get their business to a point where they've got a prototype in the hands of a customer or two. Doesn't have to have perfect form and fit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the customer has to be experiencing what the benefits are supposed to be from that product or service. And that most investors are requiring before. As I say, I'm inside my indoor swimming pool, so that's one of our clocks that chirps. And so what the students have to do is essentially bootstrap their business much further along today. And that is a huge challenge. As I said to you before we started this interview, most of my businesses, in fact, all my businesses, except for my current one, were technology based. And that meant we had to raise a lot of money before we actually could have a prototype. Today, that's a huge challenge. It wasn't nearly as difficult then, okay? But
so
now,
where were people getting their funding before and now? Because now I think most millennials, money is the biggest hindrance really across the board. It doesn't matter how old you are starting a business. The first question people think of is, can I afford to start a business? But I think I have what I tell people, a love-hate relationship with Shark Tank. I think Shark Tank has done an incredible job of elevating entrepreneurship in this country. However, it's also shown, particularly people in my generation, that, you can just go on and the only way to either get funding is to go in front of a VC panel, find angel investors, or, become almost like a micro celebrity to get funding.
Let's see. I also have a love-hate relationship with Shark Tank because I think it dramatically distorts the realities of raising money. I think that that today, for millennials, one of the challenges is to put together a team that can prove to a potential investor that this group can get the job done. This group can deliver the product or service, and most importantly, get the customers to buy that product or service. The biggest challenge for any investor is to try to reduce the risk to the place where they feel comfortable that they're going to get the kind of returns they want for this investment. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is that they have a team there that can manage through all the uncertainties that any business experiences. Remember that most businesses,
We lost your video.
We lost the video. I'm gone. I don't know. I can try this again.
You could have walked out of.
No, we're talking, so I'm in fine shape. Let's try this again. There we go. I'm back. I can see you. Can you see me?
I can. Welcome back. All right, continue on, please.
Okay. So one of the challenges that millennials have, particularly the students who are coming right off of campus and want to start a business, is to put together a team. Because again, an investor is going to bet on the jockey, not the horse. So every investor that has done this a little bit knows that the business situation that they're going to actually make the investment in is going to be radically different than what they what will ultimately be a success, where they have their liquidity event. And so there's going to be a lot of change in the business. And so what an investor needs to do is to think about, well, can this team navigate all the uncertainties, all the problems that they're going to face putting this business together? And most businesses, every one of the businesses I've had, look very, very different at the time of sale compared to what I started with when I got my first round of investment. And again, all investors that have any degree of sophistication at all understand this. And so they've got to look at the team and say, do they have the experiences on that team that are going to be necessary to manage through that uncertainty? And if they do, even if their business isn't absolutely totally perfect, that team will figure out how to make it a success.
So essentially, you're saying an investor, the first thing that they're going to do, even before they're taking a serious consideration and investing in you, is they want to know that you've done your homework in developing a team of people who are going to be successful. They invest in the people, not necessarily the product.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you see then as the biggest challenges that millennials specifically are facing when it comes to getting investment money?
Well, I think, first of all, a lot of millennials have to deal with the issue of putting that team, let's say what we were just talking about, the team. And I talk about this in class all the time. And so they are young, pretty much inexperienced, most of them. And they're going to have people that have hair the color of mine and backgrounds like I have on that team. That scares a lot of people. And so they have to have the courage to be able to go and find these kind of people, which is very easy, by the way. Find the kind of talent they need, which is one of the reasons why it's easier to start a business today. Find the kind of talent that they need, and then bring them on the team. And they have to be, have a vision that is sufficient to entice somebody who has a great background to want to be part of that team. They have to have a system in place that will convince a person to join the team that this team can be successful. This is before the investors. Now, but to get an investment, you don't have to have the whole team in place. You still can have a number of holes, but you have to know what you need and the kind of people you need. And most investors today have a network where they can get for the startup the kinds of people they need if the startup themselves can't get the people. So that's the first challenge, is to be able to put together a team. And the second thing is that in raising money, that there has to be, the basic fundamental, logic of the business has to be there. Is this something, is this business, is this putting a Band-Aid on a cut, or is it curing cancer? Is this something that's going to have a big return? Is it something that's really, really significant? An app, like the 7 gazillion apps that are out there, then there's got to be something to it. There's got to be something that is going to be able to attract a lot of people. It's got to be something, if it's going to be an app, it's got to be something that is going to go viral, and it's going to be accepted by a lot of folks. And then there has to be a logical place where somebody's going to say, whoa, I'm going to buy that not because of the app, maybe just because of the reach that it has and all the people that are there, and what it can do with it. So I think that there has to be a business that has some logic. There has to be, obviously, a big marketplace, because, again, investors expect a 10x return. They all do. They know they're not going to get it out of their portfolio. They're lucky. Most venture capital funds and most angel groups realize that even though with the best of due diligence, the majority of their investments are not going to return anything. They're going to either lose money or break even. And so they have to look for home runs, and they have to see a big potential return, because in their portfolio, only 1 or 2 are going to, if they're lucky, are going to have that big return. So they got to see that. And so if you're the CEO of the organization, then you've got to be able to convince somebody that your business is going to give that kind of return. That's not easy. That's a real challenge. That's a
How can
challenge.
millennials be taken seriously by not only investors, but just people who are older than them? One of the biggest challenges I think many, not all, but many millennial entrepreneurs do face is they look a lot younger and they act a lot younger as well as from either their customers or their investors. So what advice would you give to a young person who wants to be taken seriously in the marketplace?
Do your homework. If you've done your homework and you've got a really good business and it's put together well, I don't think your age or the way you look is going to be a big problem. You may make it a problem, but it won't be to the potential person you're trying to recruit on the team or an investor or anybody else. If they see a really good job, a really good business opportunity, and it's really put together well, and a team is in place to make it happen, I think whether it's a millennial or it's somebody my age, it's not going to make any difference. I do think there is one thing about millennials that a lot of them struggle with, and it's the notion of, well, maybe I shouldn't be CEO. Maybe I really got to go get a CEO. And maybe my job will be to do the technology stuff, or maybe I'll do the sales thing, or maybe I'll do whatever I've got I can contribute the most to this business for. So that's a challenge.
Would you say it's a lack of confidence that
No, it's a lack of talent. I mean, not everybody can be CEO.
Right.
And yet a lot of really good ideas come from people who, number one, shouldn't be CEO, but want to be CEO. I mean, how many science or technology businesses have you heard of where the founders are these, rocket scientists that can figure out anything, and they're brilliant people with really good ideas. The problem is the business acumen may not be where it needs to be. They may not have what it takes to really be the CEO. And what I try to convince the students of is, no, if that's what you want to do, well, go for it. But be ready to step back and find the CEO if you're not really the right person. Because again, at the end of the day, 100% of zero is still zero. And so you're going to have to raise the money. You're going to have to put the team together. So you want to make sure that you have the right people in the right roles, because that's the only way you're going to get invested.
So
and that
you were
gets back to another. Can I just one other thing that's very important? That I think a lot of millennials, at least that I've experienced, have difficulty with, and that's the notion of ownership. And the reality of, if I've got to raise some money, I'm not going to own this thing. And by the way, if I've got to raise a lot of money, I'm not going to own very much of it at all. And so I think that is something that is a real challenge to a lot of entrepreneurs in general, but millennials seem to be struggling with that a little more. And that notion of, gee, I'm going to be CEO, I'm going to own 100% of it, maybe I'll have a partner and we'll build 50-50, and when we sell this thing for $1 gazillion, we'll each get half. Well, that isn't quite the way it works. And that understanding is something that I think a lot of folks need to grapple with before they go out to raise money.
Do you see this generation as being more entrepreneurial than the baby boomer generation, or less?
Much more. And the reason for that is, I think the baby boomer generation are the ones that are the cause for why these people want to go out and start their own businesses. They have seen their relatives, maybe it's as close as their parents, be downsized out of businesses. lose their jobs for whatever reason. I don't pick the reason, but lose their job with their company. During the baby boomer generation, the whole contract between companies and employees was really forever broken, and so they saw that. They are a group that I think most schools are teaching a higher ethical standard, and they've seen corruption. They've seen just bad stuff that has gone on in industry. I think they have seen situations where people going into today used to be when you graduated from school, you got a real job. Today, a lot of these kids sit in cubes. I mean, give me a break. Did I go 4 years and spend $250,000 to sit in a cube? And they see that, and they know that's in their future if they don't do something different, and they may be able to get something better than that, but that's scary to them. And so I think they see that there are some problems with going into large established companies. I also think they have role models today, right down the hall in their dorms, to all the big name entrepreneurs that are out there that make people believe, hey, if they did it, I can do it. So there are people starting businesses all over the place. And it's not just the Googles and the Facebooks, but small businesses where they have success and having fun. And so I think that a lot of the students today see entrepreneurship as a way of having more control over the life situation that they find in their work. And I think they're realistic in as much as they don't expect this is going to be an easy ride. It's not like I'm going to start my own company and not have to work hard. They know they're going to have to work harder than they would if they went to a company. But they also see the potential returns as being very much greater, and then being able to put together the kind of company that they feel is a company that the way it should behave, both ethically, morally, every other way. And they see the returns in that for them in terms of a future down the road of being something that has some real upside potential and really, really good. So I believe with the role models, excuse me, and as we started this off, having it be a lot easier today. I mean, you can go out and find app developers that'll put an app together for you for relatively small dollars. Websites and all the rest. I mean, it isn't hard today if you've got a good idea to put something together from a technology standpoint. Again, as we started this, relatively inexpensively, and it can be done quickly, and you can get out there. And I think also the concept, when we've pushed this very, very hard, about the notion of being able to get this product or service. Now, I'm not talking about raising money now. We talked about this in the raising money thing, but just for your business to get something out to a customer quickly and inexpensively to find out if you're really meeting their needs. Again, entrepreneurs all have great passion. We really believe in what we're doing. And unfortunately, sometimes we're wrong. It really isn't as good as we think it is. And so it's very important to get again, you can do market research. You can do focus groups. Focus groups just prove that really nice people can tell lies. Whoops, we're gone again. Whoop. We'll try this again. There we go. Back again. And so you do the market research, you do all that, but that only is, in my opinion, that really only tells you something in one direction. If your market research tells you your product or service is really bad, believe that. But if it tells you it's really good, you don't take that one to be absolutely true. The only way you're going to find out whether or not your product really meets the needs of your customer and your business model is such that it can be profitable is that you offer that to somebody and they have to pay you. They have to pay you a price for that product or service that by the business model that you've put together, you can be profitable. Then you find out, and only then do you find out, is your product really one that's going to meet customer needs and be profit and your business be profitable. So what we try to encourage people to do is put something together as fast as you can and get it out and find that the answer to that question out really fast, because you don't want to be spending lots and lots of time and lots of money and then discover that your product really doesn't meet your customers' needs, or it meets their needs perfectly well, but there's no way you can be profitable putting it out that way.
So what role does mentorship and training have in being a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I think mentorship is crucial in no matter what you do. I think it's very, very important. It's very difficult, very, very difficult to find out truthful information about how you're being perceived and what you're doing and all the rest of that. And you need somebody who will be honest with you and somebody who will give you good feedback. And we all need that. And today more than ever, because everybody's afraid about offending anybody or anything, like, I'm never going to say something bad about anybody, but right. So it's really very, very difficult. I mean, I sit and listen to students tell each other fibs about, well, good they think the person's business idea is. And I know they think it's absolutely nonsense. And it's very, very difficult for people these days to be able to be candid. Now, as a New Yorker, I grew up in an environment where being straight up.
You have no problem with
being
real honest with people. I just got back from New York yesterday, and there's a lot of very honest people.
Very honest people. Sometimes you don't like that honesty, and sometimes it's not delivered with the nicest tone, but at least you find out what's going on. So I think a mentor is very important, very, very important. Again, no matter what you're doing, it isn't just for entrepreneurs. So I think.
So what kind of training then? I mean, do entrepreneurs today need to get an MBA?
Oh no, that's not the training they need.
What kind of training do they need then?
Well, I believe that the best thing that there were two ways to approach entrepreneurship. One is to kind of go out and go into the world, get a job, learn some skills and all, and then take what you've learned and start a business sort of built on your background. That's one way. That's a very classical, traditional way. And most businesses are actually started that way. The other way is the way the millennials want us to do it. Right? Hey, I just graduated. I want to start my business. Okay. And that's fine. What I say is just go do it. Do it. Let's say you leave campus and you start a business and you're at it 2 years and it goes belly up. I mean, totally belly up, gone. You will have learned more in those 2 years than you'll learn in 20 years and maybe a whole career working for somebody. Because you have to put a whole business together. I mean, just think about that. You're putting a whole business together. You're not doing marketing or manufacturing or sales or R&D or finance or any of those. You're doing it all. And you had to go out and meet real people and interact and sell your vision and bring a team together and all that goes into that to make
I started my first business at 24, and there's definitely something that happens to you when you wake up, and if you don't show up for work, you don't make rent, you don't have a car, you aren't eating, and there's this ownership. And I think there's a difference between an employee and an employer and that responsibility that takes place. And so what do you say, I mean, you had said millennials are more entrepreneurial than other generations are in the past. What do you see as the biggest challenge that they're going to face in the next couple of years in turning their business ideas into successful businesses?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is, I think we covered some of that. I think the biggest challenge is, first of all, make sure that you have a good idea. Make sure that your idea is something that is truly something that the world needs. And the best way, in my opinion, to do that is to, on your own dime, get something that is a near prototype out there in the marketplace to find that out. So first is to make sure that you got what you want to do is worth doing. Then I think the second thing that's the big challenge is to put together a team together that can do it. And then the biggest challenge is to go raise money. And that first challenge of getting it out there means that you've got to bootstrap that thing all the way through. And that is not a small challenge. I mean, bootstrapping is called the badge of courage for entrepreneurs, and it's called that for a good reason. Because somewhere you've got to round up enough money to make that happen. And that usually, unless you're some trust fund kid that has a lot of money that you can access, that's not easy to do. That's not easy to do. Neither are those other things, but that's the first thing.
So how do you see our two generations working together?
Well, I think basically the difference, how we work together is complementary. I mean, I think that I look to you guys as the people who are going to be, the most innovative in the space in which you live. I don't live in your space. You do. You know how your peers and all think about things and do things and all. I mean, I can study that, but I'm not one of you. And so what I would look to you for is is a leadership in that area. And I think what you would look to me for is basically the kind of experiences that I've had that you need to make sure that you don't fall in the same potholes that I fell into when I was putting my business together. And I'm going to see the pothole there and say, wait a second, we don't want to go there. There's a better way of doing it. And so I think that what we bring to the party is the experiences, the knowledge of the networks and all the stuff that is necessary to make a business happen. I think what you guys bring is a lot of the innovation, the new ideas, et cetera, facing the challenges of today. And so I think it's a very complementary role between the boomers and the millennials. I really do. I really do.
I totally agree. I think that the more that we're able to capitalize on one another's strengths, the better our businesses and the better our economy is going to be. I think that a big challenge that many young people face is that they don't want to have the opinions or the insight or the involvement of people who are older because they think that it's too old school or it might not be relevant, or they're just scared that you're going to tell them that it's wrong or that they need to start over, and so they're protecting it. And I see that in many older generations, they don't necessarily want to get involved with young people because they've either had bad experiences with their employees or their kids, or, they've seen this generation not take their opinions and their insights seriously. But I'm a big believer in generational reconciliation and making sure that we really do capitalize on our strengths. But we have reached the end of our interview, but I have the lightning round of questions. So if you're ready, I've got a couple quick questions I'm going to ask you, Fred.
Sure.
Okay, the first question is, what is the best piece of business advice you have ever received?
To be impeccably truthful. Period.
That's good. All right, next question is, if you could redo one business mistake in the past, what would it be and why?
The biggest mistake I have ever made is to be too overconfident. I was so sure I was right. So sure I was right. And I didn't test. I didn't do the very thing that I was saying to do. I didn't test to make sure that I was right. I just knew I was right. So it was just overconfidence. And the solution to that is to do what we talked about.
So what books are you reading right now?
Well, I think that I read all the books on,
I'm asking a professor this. Give me homework, Fred. What should we be reading right now?
Well, Uh, this is not, again, I told you, I'm not an academic. I don't think you should be reading a whole lot. I think you should be doing. See, I'm really in the camp. I really, truly, I mean, if you shot me up a truth serum and I was on the floor here and you asked me the question, what should a millennial be doing? Somebody that has an idea for a business, you do it. Don't talk about it. Don't study it. Don't worry about what somebody in some that thinks they understand the world and knows everything. Just do it. Try it. Get out there, and you're going to make mistakes. Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's how you learn. This is not, I'm an engineer. You know, my formal education is engineering. And my formal business education is at the Tuck School at Dartmouth. But I'm an engineer. And, you have to pretty much, there are some really important rules of science, physics and chemistry and all that you got to follow, and you can't really kind of wing it. But that isn't true with starting a business. You do your homework, you know what you got to do. There are great books in terms of, I am particularly fond of the workbooks that come out of the Planning Shop, the Rhonda Abrams series. What business should I start? The 6-week startup, the successful business plan, that whole series. And they're great because they're great workbooks. They're not textbooks. I mean, I use them in my classes. That's how I know about them. But I use them. But they're workbooks. And you have an idea. You just start executing on it. And I think that's how you're going to, what you're trying to do is start a business. You're not trying to write a paper or write a book.
That's good. All right, final question, and it's a little silly, but this is what I ask everybody. Fred, if the 12-year-old version of you were to meet you today, what would he say?
Well, I have a 12-year-old granddaughter. And she's on her way to being a lot like me. But what would she say? I think now, I think they'd say, and I'll use her and her brother as examples. Hey, Papa's pretty cool. It's done a lot of neat things. So I think that, and I get that from the students, by the way. And they're a lot older than 12, obviously. But I think that part of what inspires them is the fact that I've done what I've done, and I've had the successes that I've had. And again, in a way, I'm a role model to them. Because again, if I can do it, they can do it. You don't have to be, a super person. You just have to do your thing and believe in yourself. And there's a ton of other stuff that we could talk about, but I know we're coming to an end here. But yeah, I think most people would say that what I've done is pretty cool.
Well, there you have it. Fred, thank you so much for taking time to give us a perspective very unique to you, but also too unique to someone who has seen decades of entrepreneurs rise and fail, and give some really solid advice to the next generation. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Well, it's my pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.